Hey, I'm here with Luke Austin, who's our worship pastor, and Justin Saxons, who serves as our youth pastor, and I'm Ken White. I serve as the lead pastor here at Forest Park Covenant Church. This is our first ever podcast, so we are really excited about this, and we're going to just take a moment and talk about what we thought about on Sunday in terms of family dynamics. First thing that we talked about was that we're trying to uphold a couple of really important dynamics for our family ministry, and one is that we want to equip parents and build cross-generational connections. And I wonder, Justin, if you could say a couple things about that.
Yeah, pretty simply, we've realized over the years how important it is to equip parents to be an active participant in their kids' faith. Mm-hmm. And all the time, parents are like, what do I do? And we always kind of feel that way. We just kind of muddle through. So it's helpful to give people just some ideas and some tips and like, hey, try this. And hey, and so as a church, we want to be able to do that for people and encourage them and try to give them some ideas and equip them to lead their kids in their faith.
Yeah, that's great.
And then cross-generational, one of the best things about a church is that there's people of all ages. And the more you can get people to make those connections and to see the bigger church family, the better it is for your whole church, but especially for a young person's faith.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, we're really excited about this Family Dynamics series, and we talked a little bit about communication this past Sunday. So we're just going to reflect on the 2 points that we talked about there. And I just found it to be really interesting to go into Proverbs, which is the book that we're kind of landing on. And so I just want to read one of the Proverbs and the point that I made, and then have you guys reflect a little bit on it. So the first point that we made on Sunday was to have a great family dynamic in communication. Listen first and seek understanding. And the Proverbs, it always just kind of cracks me up, is Proverbs 17:28. Even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is deemed intelligent, which is funny because it's not saying he is intelligent, but it seems as if a person who doesn't speak too much is deemed that way. And I just wondered, as I read that kind of scripture, when you think about listening, are there other scriptures that you think of as fathers with your own families? And it actually might be interesting for me to just ask each of you to say, who's in your family, and just describe this. So why don't I start with Luke?
Whenever I think about listening, I have 6 children, so family around the table, it's not a quiet time. It's not a reflection. There's so much talking over each other constantly. Yeah. And we have one, definitely an introvert, and maybe 2. The Titus, the 2-year-old, is showing a little bit of signs of just being quiet, but Ransom is our introvert. And I always have to make a point about halfway through dinner because he hasn't spoken much. He's just sitting there, trying to put the blinders on of not having to deal with all the loudness and chaos. I have to try to bring him in and say, hey, Ransom, did you have anything to say? And then the kids have to hush up so that they can listen to what Ransom has to say around the table.
That's great.
And when he does, then he pipes up real loud, and he's, okay, yes, here are my 3 sentences. And then I'm back to here. So drawing out from that listening that's just my family dynamic.
It was funny because Luke and I were on a Zoom meeting last night with a bunch of other pastors, and Luke asked a question, and he was on mute. And the speaker was answering the question, said, hey, Luke, can you speak into that? So he unmuted, and we saw the video camera, and as soon as he unmuted, it was like, the sound,
yes.
coming through. And I thought, this is what the Austin family must be like all the time.
Yes, they were playing Pictionary, and it was a very passionate game.
That's great. Justin, could you say a little bit about your own family?
I got 4 kids, 2 in middle school, 2 in high school, and a wife, Melissa. She has been the best example in our family for listening because she's driven that way. She asks questions. She wants to know more. And so she's helped all of us, and especially me, set the tone around the table, which we've learned has been super important. Okay, around the table, everyone talks, everyone listens. When someone's talking, you don't talk over them. Whoa, slow down, you're interrupting. Just all that good stuff that has really helped. So now that as our kids are getting old enough to sort things out on their own and do that kind of stuff, they will actually follow suit now. Hey, excuse me, don't talk over me. Or, hey, I'm not done
Them
talking
to stand
yet.
up for
Or,
themselves.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
Do you have a similar
know?
difference of family makeup as Luke does in his own family? There's some extroverts, some introverts.
Yes.
Are they?
Yes. But the good part is that, I mean, our table as kids are a little bit older, like it's not so crazy and loud and rambunctious anymore. It can be excitable and it can be fun, but it's like an environment where everyone feels like, okay, I can be honest, I can vent, I can say whatever about my day.
Yeah.
So
Oh, great. Well, thanks for telling us about your family.
Yeah.
So going back to this first point, we just said to have a great family dynamic and communication, listen first and seek understanding. And Justin, could you you've already said a little bit about how you do that in your family. Are there other ways that you've seen that work out in the Saxton family?
Yeah, one of the things we've encouraged our kids from a very young age, when they got mad or somebody hurt their feelings, instead of us sorting it out, like, Mom, Dad, so-and-so did this, like, okay, we'll go talk to them. You're upset, tell them why you're upset, and sort it out together. And part of that is the other person has to listen and say, oh, I didn't do that. Or, no, listen to what they're saying. They're saying you did this. Now respond, work it out. And that's been huge.
Yeah.
Just in general, because it continues.
Yeah.
And because we've enforced it nonstop all the time.
Is it different
talk to them.
from what you grew up in, different than what Melissa grew up in terms of the standard of what you wanted to have?
A little bit. I think, I was just a little bit ornery with my sister and kind of poke and pick, and my parents would be like, go say you're sorry, and I'd sorry, and that was it. That was kind of
Right.
it.
No full reconciliation
that
between
in
the
our house. Like, no, you're gonna sit there and sort this out.
Yeah.
No matter how long it takes.
I think some of that is really realizing your own role as a father in your own position in Jesus Christ, so that as you think about the family that you came from, you oftentimes want to live counter to that. And that's really true for me, and that's really true for Marcia. And so, as I've watched you guys as families, I've actually really been, I think you guys do admirable jobs with your kids. They're just really very unique and themselves and really interactive with people. Luke, how do you help your family listen first and
Yeah, well, since there's so much noise, we try to. It's really easy to get into the mindset of I want to be heard. I really, really want to be heard. One of the ways that Haley and I do that, especially when there's conflict, we make our kids, whoever they're arguing with, you have to say what the other person is thinking, like their version of what happened. And that might just be simply, since I have young kids, of he picked up the toy that I was using. Well, that's what he said. He said that he picked up the toy. What did you do? Well, I didn't pick up I may have picked up the toy. So it's just kind of that navigating towards the truth of accepting fully what the other person said, instead of just calling him out, he's lying.
Yeah.
That's been a challenge in the listening portion. For me in my marriage, I have a wife that is not always incredibly direct with what she says, which is what I usually need. Part of the way that she's learning how to love me is to try to be as direct as possible with her words, so there's no misinterpreting. Yeah. But my practice there in my marriage is, no matter what she says, I have to wait, pause, and try to see if she's trying to tell me something deeper. It could just be, get your feet off the couch, please. But what she said was, isn't our couch nice?
Yeah.
Why would she just randomly say, isn't our couch nice?
Yeah.
Oh, are you asking me to get my feet off? Yes, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's not what you said, but I'm going forward.
Well, and a lot of what we were talking about, just even now, we've been talking about how to listen to our kids, but of course there's a huge thing about how to listen to your spouse. And I'd like to say that, I've mastered that, but I find that I continue to have the same missteps as I did when we were first married. They're not nearly as intense. When I misstep and it's brought to my attention, I'm like, oh, I did it again. And I've learned to understand that partly is just who I am. Like, what I think is real interesting about your family, Luke, is that it's a great family with 6 kids. It's going to be noisy just because there's 6 kids.
Right.
But I do also think that your kids really, really like to be with each other and be energetic.
Right.
Isn't that right?
Yes.
And so you don't want to put that down in order to be able to listen. You want to balance those kinds of things. So how do you balance out both listening and wanting your kids to be fully themselves?
Oh, that's a really great question. Most of the time, I think it comes down to making sure I spend individual time with each of them so that they know that amidst the chaos, that they are thought of and loved and have had a good deposit from me as a dad and from Haley as a mother each and every day. We try to be very intentional about doing that so that there would be space for them to talk about what's going on. Just last night, I stayed up too late. It was midnight, and I'm heading upstairs, and Jude, the 3-year-old, is coming downstairs. And he's got this big, bright smile on his face and says, "Hey, Dad, can I have some cheese?" Like it was morning. So I had the opportunity. The first thing I wanted to do was go, "Boy, are you crazy? Go back to bed." But then I thought, I hadn't really gotten to talk to him all day due to work and everything else. So I said, "Sure." And I turned around and got him some cheese, got him some milk, and we sat at the table. And he talked about things that 3-year-olds are interested in talking about. And we played Trouble. I won, and it was great. And then he went to bed. And the whole thing took about 20 minutes, but it was just that extra time for him.
Yeah, really just taking advantage of the moment, which is a huge part of, I would imagine, a family of 8 people.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've only ever had 4. That's the largest our family has been. And for your family, you have 6. And just speaking into your relationship with Melissa, what are the ways that you found that you need to work on to listen with her?
That's funny. Last night I had a little thing where I said something and she was responding to me, and I'm like, and so she said it again, and I still wasn't getting it, and I was starting to get frustrated, like, what the heck, why? And I said, look, I don't. This is what I've finally learned. It's taken a while, and I still am sometimes a little slow. It took me a little bit to get there. I said, look, say that differently, because I don't. You keep saying it, and I don't get it. So can you just say it in a totally different way? Anyway, like I don't even know how. Just say it a totally different way. What are you trying to say? Because I don't. You said the last thing twice now, and I still don't get it. And that's taken me a while. And then just slow down enough to say, okay, is this why you're upset? Is it because I said this or because I did this? Is that what you mean? So I guess just seeking understanding, which is what we talked about earlier.
Yeah. And just to complete the story, did you get to a point of understanding last night?
I did. It took a while. We had to go on a walk. So we took the dog for a walk, and it was longer than I thought the walk would go, but we got there, and that was it, because at the end we're like, okay, we're on the same page. I understand you, you understand me. We're good, right? Yeah. Okay. So.
I find that when I've misunderstood my wife and she tells me that I've misunderstood her, I feel like a deer in headlights. I mean, I can just feel my eyes going, and it's always the same. It's always the sort of the same thing, which for me is like saying, I think we ought to do this, and sort of making it sound like this is what we're going to do without really asking her this question, which is, what do you think we ought to do?
Right. And
that is something that can be annoying, and then it can be hurtful. And then she tells me that I've done that, and I'm just like, I can't believe I've done it again. It's just like a deer, I would think that by now a deer would go, these are moving vehicles with headlights. I think that I'm going to avoid them. But they're like, what is this? I'm hypnotized by it all. The second thing that we talked about is to have a great family dynamic in communication, bless each other. And I just love this proverb, Proverbs 25:11. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver. Mm-hmm. And I had been talking through this sermon with Luke, and he just said, I really just want to bless other people. And so that's where we got that word, blessing each other. And so moving over to Luke, like, how is it that you work to bless your family, your kids and your wife?
Right. Well, so often in a listening factor in our mind anyway, we want it to be about us. And when there's a breakdown in communication, we go to our place of woundedness, and then we lash out again and try to hurt because we're functioning from that. Nobody's been listening to me, and I'm wounded and I'm frustrated, and we completely forget what we are for. What we are for, especially in relationships. Like, I want to have an intimate relationship with my wife. I want her to succeed. I want my children to thrive and grow. But when we function from a place of woundedness, we forget that.
Yeah.
And striving to communicate better with my family, I have to, with each time, check myself and go, I love this person and I want them to succeed. And that helps me in my communication, how I speak to them, and in how I ask questions. So it's an act of care. Like as you have said many times, listening itself is an act of care. It's an act of blessing.
Yeah. Yes. Can you think of a specific way that you've blessed any of your children or your wife in the last several days?
Normally, I always ask each kid when I get home from work, how did it go today? What was your high point? What was your low point? What's your favorite music? How did piano practice go? Just to try to dig and show in my interest.
Yeah.
And then when the kids are down, Haley and I get those 30 minutes to an hour of adult time finally, and say, okay. And you look at your spouse, you made it through a day. Way to go. Please tell me about what you felt, how the day went.
Yeah.
So trying to dig in a little bit.
Do you feel like you yourself want others to bless you? Like when you are interacting in the world, are you sort of impervious to that need, or do you feel yourself also wanting people to say things and then you feel blessed when people bless you?
I feel blessed when people show interest and listen and ask questions.
Yeah.
I think it's such a simple act as a Christian that we often forget that that's a simple act of care. That's a blessing, to ask questions and show interest.
Yeah, I agree. How about you, Justin? How do you find yourself blessing?
Well, since probably my oldest was one of the first ones in the house, we had to memorize Ephesians 4:29. We went with the Message version, and the last part of that is say only what helps, each word a gift. And now all the way through, like, that's been a mantra in our family, because when you get excited, you get mad, you get frustrated, those words can come flying out.
They sure can.
And they do in my family. And so we're like, okay, are you saying what only helps? Are you saying, what you're saying, is that a gift to them? And we are always coming back to that. Even me, like, oh, come on. Okay.
Did it build?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, just in general, it made me think of when you were just saying that, Luke, is that I think you can win fights and disagreements with your family, but not win the relationship. And so one of the things I read somewhere, I think through Fuller Youth Institute, was just to remember to fight for the relationship. And so sometimes that means maybe I don't have to win an argument or, a conversation. Like, I just need to listen and seek the long-term investment in this relationship.
Yeah.
So that's been a good reminder for us.
It's really astounding to me for both of your families just how positive your families are. And I know that you've done a lot of things, but when I'm around your kids and I'm around your spouses, I want to be around them. They're really, really great to be around. And it reminded me, again, Luke and I were on a Zoom meeting last night, and the speaker was just talking about how you want to make an organization or family to be a place where people like each other. And I was like, well, so I put in a question. I was like, what concrete things can you do to create an organization or family like that? And instead of giving something concrete, he actually said something really wonderful. He said, I think about creating an organization or family that I would want to be a part of. And I just wrote that down, and I just thought, yeah, that's exactly it. I think that when I want to be a part of something, I want to be a place where people are blessing each other, and they're really powerfully positive, whether that's in a church or a staff team, but really very specifically in my family. So those are really great values that we've talked about. We're going to be talking about some great values on conflict resolution. I don't know if you guys have any last thoughts about blessing and listening. You pretty much said it all.
I'm gonna keep my mouth shut so I don't seem like a fool.
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons that my family is so unbelievably positive is because Haley is so relentlessly positive all the time. Even when I'm feeling snarky and cut down with my words, she finds a way to take them and transform them into something beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's a really annoying habit whenever I'm mad about something, because she'll just take it and bring glory to God somehow out of the chaos. So it's good. He who's found a wife has found a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think you just said this, Ken, though, that in finding or making your home a place where people enjoy being, one of the things we've done is, as we sit down and have family dinners, it's not every night, and especially once you get kids that are driving and in older sports and things like that, like it can be really hard to navigate. So, but one of the things Melissa does almost every week is everyone gets like input on the family meals.
Yeah.
Well, which it may seem like a silly small thing, but when someone gets a meal that they love or they're excited about, like,
Yeah.
hey, sweet, this is my meal, let's go. It's a small thing, but it's been super fun.
Yeah. I know we'll do a couple more podcasts here in Family Dynamics. We hope to have some other voices in here. But one of the things that is also true is that our generational experience of families, we're just each in a separate generation. So my boys are 30 and 26. Your kids are ranging from 14 to about 17, and your kids are from 3 to, I want to say, 12, 10.
2 to 10, yeah.
And so it's 3 different generations. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've just found to be really amazing with grown-up kids, they come here for Thanksgiving and Christmas and for different kinds of outings, is to watch my 2 sons and see how much they like being around each other. And then how much we like being around them. And how much they like being with us. I'm always amazed as they've grown, we'll ask them, do you want to go do this with us? Like last year we decided, before we were called here, to go on a 2-week trip and to take a major vacation with them and ask them if they'd like to go. You have to pay for your own way, and they all wanted to come. So we just felt really blessed by that, and felt somehow blessed that our family is in a good place. We've got still lots of work to do, but we're really, really blessed by that. And I'm looking forward to us talking in the coming weeks about some other family dynamics, and we hope that this will be helpful for people.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ken.